All right, stuff I like. Let's deal. So what we're talking about this fantasy world that the left is so good at creating. And I wanted to pick a couple of movies that show how the left makes good movies with truth in them that are also lies. And they do it by changing the values of real life into the values of the movie. So we were talking about V for Vendetta, in which the Christians are the oppressors and the Muslims are the oppressed. Well, yeah, if Christians oppressed people, then it would be courageous to stand up against Christians. But since they don't in real life, it's just, and since they are the most persecuted religion on the face of the planet, I think, even including the Jews, I think that they're just, when you change that reality, you can create a world inside the movie in which being a left-wing values actually make sense. Fair enough. So I want to talk about James Cameron, obviously Avatar. Avatar is one of the most amazing pieces of propaganda ever made. I mean, that you can get people, this is one of the things, when you can get people to pay you to propagandize them. It was made during the wars on terror, which of course are still going on, but it was made during their height, and it's about evil earthlings coming to steal the energy source of these primitive, what are they called? The Navi, the Navi, that's right, the Navi. They're these aliens on this other planet, and they're basically a primitive. It's the same story as Dances with Wolves, as Pocahontas, even as Brigadoon, if you think about the musical, about civilized people who go to a primitive culture and find that it is better than their culture, that they in fact are the oppressors. They think the primitive people are the savages, or the evil savages, but no, the primitive people are wonderful, it's paradise and all this stuff. And it's the civilized people who are the invaders, the cruelty, the imperialists and all this. So here he has an avatar, and the hero has an avatar in which he joins the Na'vi and of course ultimately becomes their warrior leader. Here's the speech where he inspires them to attack his own people.
The Sky people have sent us a message that they can take whatever they want, and no one can stop them. Well, we will send them a message. You ride out as fast as the wind can carry you. You tell the other clans to come. You tell them Tarak Makto calls to them. And you fly now. With me. My brothers. Sisters. And we will show the Sky people that they cannot take whatever they want. And that this is our land.
So if primitivism were paradise, and primitive people were nonviolent and had what they have in this movie, the basically equality between the sexes, some of this would start to make sense. I mean, basically you would have this evil, aggressive, greedy outsiders coming and taking away what is rightfully theirs. And listen, there's just no question that in situations where new people come into a land and there are natives there, the natives usually get the short end of the stick, and it usually doesn't happen in the nicest possible way. I mean, Thomas Jefferson wanted the Indians to be brought into American society. They ended up being virtually wiped out and left on reservations, which is even worse, I think. But the whole thing is, the Na'vi are a complete fantasy. Rousseau talked about the noble savage. They are a complete fantasy. Why? Because they have light that lights up the night. They have little plants that they can use to light up the night. They can fly on dragons. They have equality with men and women have equality. You can have all those things, but you need one little thing. You need oil. And then you can invent electric lights, and then you can have planes, and then you can have the kind of technology that is required before women stop being simply vessels of the tribe, right? Because when you are in a savage situation, women are birthing the new generation. They have to be protected. They have to be owned. They have to be basically chattel. And that's what happens. Most primitive societies are more violent than civilized societies. I mean, if you think about it, that's true. In Dances with Wolves, they find the wonderful Lakota tribe. It's like those guys were killing everybody. Those tribes were at war, and all that happened was a big powerful tribe, the Europeans came and took away their land. But they were taking away each other's land before. So all I'm saying, I'm not like, saying, oh, yes, let's go and kill all the primitive people. But when Avatar came out, the idea that we were taking the oil from the Iraqis, when did that happen? That never happened. The idea that the Iraqis were this wonderful little primitive society of equality, it was a torture chamber. Iraq was a torture chamber when we invaded. They had rape rooms in Iraq, a phrase that still sticks in my throat when I try to say it, rape rooms, where Saddam Hussein and his kids could bring women for their pleasure. I mean, these things are just not that clear. And this is a wonderful piece of propaganda, a tremendously entertaining movie, only because the primitives basically are given technology through magic means. They are given technology through magic means. The left were building websites where they got to pretend to live among the Na'vi because it was so appealing. It was so appealing because they had electric lights, except they were magic. They had flight, except it was dragons. And women were not treated like garbage, which they are in many, many primitive societies. They are treated with violence in many primitive societies. Why? Because men are stronger. There's no technology to make that balance out. I was once talking to a high-level woman in a TV station, and we were talking about stories, and I was saying how much I like Game of Thrones. And she said, in Game of Thrones, I've told this story before, but it's worth retelling. She said, in Game of Thrones, there's too much rape. I said, well, it takes place in a non-technological society. Women have no defense. If you don't have guns, you have no defense, And in primitive societies, women are much more in danger. She said, well, they shouldn't have put that in. And she said, it's their story. They can put in anything they want. And I said, yes. And then it would be dishonest. And it's not a great story anymore. It may still be a good story, but it's no longer a great story because it's not honest. They believe that they can just write the world so that they can WRITE, the world, so that their values make sense. And that is how they sell them to you. But in real life, does anybody really think that this continent should be run by people who never invented the wheel? Does anybody think that this world would be a better place for humanity, for women, for men, for everybody, if this continent were still completely run by people who didn't invent the wheel? They didn't invent the wheel, okay? You don't get very far without doing that. All right, that's the show. Tomorrow is the mailbag. Tomorrow is the mailbag. Subscribe, get your questions in. The answers, guaranteed correct, and will change your life, possibly for the better. I'm Andrew Klavan. This is The Andrew Klavan Show. We'll see you again tomorrow.